Okay, the graphics on, we're on, so I'll call to order the meeting of Littleton Board of Health of August 18th, 2015. We've got some administrative matters first. Are there any board reports?
Nothing.
I have several,
Okay.
as always. The MRC Executive Committee has 2 new members that would like to join it, of which we need to vote them in technically.
Okay.
They are 2 people that have served on the volunteer corps for a long time, Mike Hilton and Gary Austin.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept Mike. Oh, you want to discuss?
I was just going to ask, I mean, what in their position will just be on the board and as board members?
Their executive committee, it's either going to be a board of directors or executive committee,
Okay.
whatever they call it. They'll help guide the MRC and the CERT as it converts to adding CERT.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're going to do a great job. So, can I make a motion to, Bill, do you want to have?
Do we have a second?
Does it requires a motion of the board to?
Oh, sure, we have to vote in the executive committee members of the MRC.
Okay, I make a
Technicality, but
motion that we accept the membership or approve the membership of the 2 new MRC board members. Names, please.
Mike Hilton and Gary Austin.
Mike Hilton and Gary Austin.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Anything else?
Yes, we're going to have a booth at the Country Fair, the Unitarian Church Country Fair, the 12th of September.
That's when that is.
So
Okay.
come and join us, come and see us. Also,
NED is a restroom, I'm right around the corner.
there's a restroom right around the corner. Also, I'm shy of my CEUs for my Certified Health Officer certification. Each year I have to have so many CEUs, and I'm shy a bit. And there is a 3-day Certified Health Officer, or MHOA, Massachusetts Health Officer Association, meeting on the Cape. It is 3 days. It is a training that tends to update all the regulations for Massachusetts. People come in from DEP and DPH, and there's sessions on septic, there's sessions on food, there's sessions on housing. It's a really good training.
I've spoken at those, and they're pretty well done.
Yeah, the MHOA does, I think, a fabulous job, and I would like to go. And there's 2 avenues of funding. One is the training funding that we have, which is, I don't know what it is, a year, that we have $1,500 or $25 or $3,000, whatever it is, I don't know. And then there's also the emergency preparedness money, of which we have $4,200.
Okay.
And the cost for me would be $910, includes housing, food for the 3 days, and attending the seminar.
Okay. When do you need to know by?
Well, this is the thing. It's $910 till if they can receive the money by the 31st of August, it will be $910. After that, it jumps up every month.
How much?
It jumps up $30.
Okay. I'm fine with it. My preference would be to wait because Shelley couldn't make it here, but I don't feel strongly, so if somebody wants to make a motion, Bill. I don't know, how do we make a motion? Because I guess I'll have to second it even as chair, because,
Yeah, you can second things as chair.
yeah.
You can do that.
Not
if
typically,
you
but
want.
yeah.
You can do that, that's okay.
All right, in that case, I make a motion that the Board of Health vote to fund the $910 for Ian's attendance at the 3-day meeting on Cape Cod, sponsored by the MOHA on
October 20th through the 23rd.
October 20th.
Okay, I'll second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Pass.
Thank you. Also, I did pass on to Bill there, and you're probably aware of this, is the local public health institute out of BU and MDPH joint, and they have what is called the Foundations course, and they have many other courses to take specifically geared towards boards of health, whether you're an employee of a board of health like Jim, or whether you're on the board. And they've got lots of different courses that are available by webinar, also by attendance. And I think I just wanted to bring that up, that if anyone is interested, it would be great if other people on our board, even ones that aren't here tonight, wanted to go to some of these things,
Okay.
would be good.
And for most of it's a time issue, but it's
Yep.
good for folks to know that it's available,
Yes.
so. And who's it through, BU? Oh, I heard a talk on that, actually.
yeah,
the
local
process
public health,
and
yeah.
age-based stuff.
Yeah, Jim Greffey, our health agent, did one of the sessions on inspecting camps. So, and it's spread out over a few months. It's a more intensive course.
From October to March?
To March, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
once a week, 2 hours once a week, something like that. But it's very good. You have people from the field coming in to teach on all the regulations that we're over, which is about 15 regulations. So it was a good overview. I did it a few years ago. It was very good, and I highly recommend it for anyone on the board.
I heard a presentation of that on the Mass Association of Health Boards. It sounded like a great course, but since most of us are working, it's difficult to pull that
Yeah.
on, is the difficulty for that, so.
Yeah, but they have pieces, they do pieces of that course just by webinar and just by online
Well,
as
they
well.
told me you could just sit in on a part of the webinar and not complete the course, but go actually review the material and not do the
Right,
course.
I'd be interested
Yeah.
in the
That,
webinars.
Yeah.
that would probably be, but I mean, even
Yeah.
the
Much.
webinars were, if you do the actual webinar for credit or for certification, it's a significant time commitment.
It's a couple hours a week, definitely. It
But
is.
you can pick and choose on the webinars too, if
Yeah.
you feel as though it's something you
And you don't have to
really
complete
should
them,
be.
so if you just
Well,
want to
you
go
can sit
through it
in,
and not,
yeah. Yeah.
that was the only way it was going to work for me, I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and that would be good, and maybe John would even be interested too as a new board member. I don't know, but I want to know, I want everyone to know that I don't feel like I'm the person that has to use all the training money. I don't intend to use all the training money. I do have a certification associated with being on this board, so I feel like it's justified, but at the same time, I want other people to know
Yeah,
there are things
I
out
think we're
there.
fine. I mean, it's a function of people having jobs and other commitments, and
Yeah.
and you're not constrained by that at present, so.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Bill?
I have nothing.
Okay, I did get a call from, email from Jim Gareffi. The beach has got a high hit on coliform. DPH guidelines basically say you need a second high hit for it to be closed. I think the beach is technically closed anyhow right now because all the lifeguards went home for the year. But I believe it'd be posted and that sort of thing. They should have a second. The results of the second test should be tomorrow afternoon. I don't imagine this rain will help much,
Yeah, probably won't help much.
so.
And we haven't had a closing of our beach because of high coliform count for probably 2 years.
Yeah,
So it may go down.
so, and that's all I have.
Okay.
I don't believe we have any minutes.
You don't have any minutes,
We
okay?
do have correspondence, is largely what I've seen is from 370 Harwood, which is our agenda item at 7:30. We do have some permits to sign. I think I get all of them in here, so pass them around. I think some just need my signature, others need those of others. I may have missed one, so if you see that.
Okay, we'll let you
Sherry
know.
didn't completely idiot-proof it for me, so.
Can I borrow your pen? Because this won't work on the,
The pen doesn't work.
Government.
no,
Oh.
it's, you know, see what I'm saying? It's a felt tip.
You want me
so
to go get another one?
Yeah, please.
I had no idea it was a felt pen when I grabbed it.
It's okay. Okay, here you go.
Okay, I'm taking notes for Shelley, so we can have
Yep.
one back.
Yep, thank you. We have an extra pen for others. Okay. Oh, this is for tonight. We don't sign this yet,
No.
because 18
Yeah.
Lincoln Drive, we haven't done it yet.
I'll put it aside. I'll take it aside then.
I won't tell anybody.
That didn't matter. We just want to give it to him if he wants to prove it.
Yep. We used to get Central Massachusetts Mosquito Control Project reports. Shelley used to just email them out in a packet. I haven't seen one in a long time. But we do have in Middlesex County some positive chikungunya virus, which is mosquito-borne. And I think for the first time, they're now monitoring that.
This is the first time they've done
Yeah,
that.
yep. And there is some West Nile. There's no West Nile in this, there's no, a few positive for West Nile, nothing for Tripoli, which is good.
Hopefully about another week or two, they'll start saying that. No, it has been earlier.
Yeah, yeah, we had a real bad year a few years ago.
Hi, Russ.
We got a couple minutes to make sure everybody's here.
This goes to Shelley, this is the,
Shelley's getting all of this back. so.
yeah. Give that to Shelley. Let me paperclip it, because it's
That's
loose
okay,
paper.
she'll get it.
Okay.
We're just gonna be completely technically accurate and start at 7:15 on the dot in case there's an abutter or somebody showing up late, so. Since we have time.
Doesn't look like a very big night.
I think the rain and thunder has scared off a number of people.
I just don't think we had anything that interesting.
But Brad, it's always like this, unless there's a dispute.
I think we'll see a little bit of action at 7:30. All right, I think we can start. So, open the hearing for 18 Lincoln Drive. This is rescheduled from the 11th when we unfortunately didn't have a quorum. We apologize for that. Please step forward.
Got a couple sets of plans here for you.
Sounds like a pretty challenging site from what I could see.
One set. I'll take another set over here.
Thank you.
Challenging is the word. I'm Russ Wilson, and this is my client Bill Oakland.
Hi, Bill.
Howdy.
And we got a, kind of like a postage stamp lot here, 90 by 100, and the house is right in the middle. So we were kind of limited with space as far as that goes. So after trying a bunch of different types of septic systems, the one that fit in there the best was the Presby. And we got a 2-foot wall going around it, which is a lot better than some of the walls that we usually have to end up with. But talking with Jim, he was he realized that, you know, we were limited in the area and he wanted more treatment for the surge coming out of the house. So we put in a singular treatment tank instead of the standard 2,000 gallon compartment septic tank.
So where did you put that? I'm sorry, I don't see it on my plan that I'm looking at.
It's right,
Is it the,
I use this one.
look at this one, see the surge comes out of the house, goes into the singular tank. Then it goes to a pump chamber, the D box, and then into the Presby leach field.
okay, so which is the one that will aerate or help?
That one right there.
That one right there?
Yep.
And it's 1,000? It's 1,000 gallons?
It's a 960. It's
Okay,
for a 3 to 4 bedroom
okay.
design. So that's basically it.
So the variances you're looking for?
Everything?
There's a list.
Yeah, we've got it up there.
Okay.
That's usually what we focus on.
That's it right here.
You want me to read them?
Go through them one by one until we got them.
Okay.
Regulations, fill requirements, use of retaining wall and fill within 10 feet of a property line.
Yep.
Any questions on that from board members?
Not much of a choice.
Some divergence from Title V regulations.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Test holes.
So 2 deep observation holes are required. One is provided in the primary area lying under section 15. So you had lots so small, you only did one is basically what it boils down to, or?
Well, we did one in the back, and there's an old septic system that we hit. So we stay away from there, and primarily on the systems on the side. I was gonna put an L, didn't work that way.
Okay,
that
you have wet
happens.
soil, so you did a sieve analysis as an alternative to the perk test.
Yeah, and I have that result right here. And the sandy loam, so I signed it on a 30-minute perk.
Okay, that's good.
Minimum setback distance 10 feet to a cellar wall from leach field. You've got 7. You don't have a lot of room there, so,
Yeah, it's not a cellar, it's just a garage on a slab there.
okay. So there is no cellar.
Yeah, it turns out it's
Slab.
there's a slab there, so.
Okay, so that's actually not part of the variance.
There's no crawl space on it?
Not under the garage, no, that's next to it.
Oh, the garage is right here?
Yeah,
Oh,
goes
okay.
actually front to back.
Gotcha.
I think that's supposed to be 10 feet to a property line is required as a setback. You've got 2.5 feet and 3 feet, 3.5 feet. And you've got, any questions on that one from board members?
Once again, not much
Not
choice.
much you can do.
This is a 3-bedroom system, Russ?
Yes.
Your depth to groundwater, 4 is required, you provided 3.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why Jim was insisting on more treatment.
12-inch separator is required between tank inlets and outlets to groundwater. All you can do is 6 inches. So,
That's pretty tight.
any questions or discussion from board members?
The old system was a cesspool?
No, it's a septic tank with a leach tank. It's worked fine for 32 years.
And it was on the back side of the house? It's back here?
Yeah, it's basically where the,
Yeah.
first is showing the tanks now. Yeah.
Yeah, those things would last forever. Every spring, the groundwater comes up and cleans them out.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well,
Whether you have a private well or not.
it depends if you're the
Yeah,
neighbors or not.
There's no wells, I don't see anything wrong with it, but
Okay.
Even with all the variants, it's gonna be a better system than what was there, I think, anyway.
Yeah, with the president, what I've read about it, it's
They're pain in the neck, I have one, but they do a good job.
tight,
You have a Presby?
Oh, yeah.
pain in the neck to put in, or?
Oh, there's pump issues.
Oh,
Pumps are another moving part.
yeah.
Moving parts are bad.
Well, that's what I'm a little concerned about the singular system, because that's really adds so much complexity. I don't really understand why the increase is required.
Jim wrote to us, he doesn't have a problem with how it's proposed,
Yeah,
so.
I'm just waiting for Bill.
no Gino, haven't seen him for a while.
No.
Oh, I'm fine with
Okay. I'll make a motion.
Please.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the plan presented tonight for 18 Lincoln Drive dated 7/12/15 by Russ Wilson and Associates with the following. With Board of Health Regulation 27, fill requirements, wall and fill within 10 feet of the property line, 2.5 feet and 3.5 feet are provided. For local upgrade approval regarding Title V, Section 102, deep observation holes are required. 1 is provided in the primary area due to interference with an old septic system. Section 104, 2 perk tests required in a system area, none provided due to soil wetness. A sieve analysis was provided with loamy sand.
Sandy loam.
Sandy loam. Section 211, minimum setback distances 10 feet to a cellar wall or a slab from the leach field required, 7 feet provided. 10 feet to a property line is required, and 2.5 and 3.5 are provided. Depth to groundwater, 4 feet is required, 3 feet is provided, allowing for the use of the Presby. Also, a 12-foot separation is required between tank inlets and outlets to groundwater. 6 inches is provided.
I think it's 12-inch separation.
12 inch.
12
Oh,
inch.
12-inch separation,
That's a
excuse me.
typo.
That would be very big. 12-inch separation required, and there are 6 inches provided for section 227-5A.
Any discussion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So I have a note here from Shelley that, we need a $250 check to Neshoba Boards of Health and a $25 check to to Little. So, you can drop that off and get your permit from Shelley if that works for you
Okay.
guys. So, you guys might as well sign it now, and
Yep.
we'll give it to Shelley to hold.
What was the second one?
Sorry, it's $250 to Neshoba,
Yep.
Associated Boards of Health, and $25 to Little.
Okay.
I think that goes to Towns Littleton.
Those are
Yeah,
permit fees.
Yep.
Okay.
yep.
Does Shelley have a copy of this, Russ, or do you want me to keep this?
I'll leave this with Shelley.
I
for the rest of it.
Oh, all
think
Okay,
Just in case,
gave her
unless you
one.
want them back.
with the variance letter.
okay.
This is something else, right? You handed that to me. What-
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
That's what we already signed. I signed that. Well, you guys still need to
Back,
sign
he's-
that.
he's
What is
gonna
this?
keep that one.
What does Bill?
Oh, yeah, well, you need to send me that file.
We didn't do
This
that?
must be the,
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you very
Good luck.
much.
so this is just a deed thing?
Yep.
Someone has a... Whatever, just something. And then this must be just like correspondence. Septic loan.
Oh, no, this has to do with, this is RCAP. This has to do with the septic loan program. I signed that one, so.
Okay.
That goes
Okay.
here.
That might be all the correspondence, I don't know. Okay. This could be the shortest meeting in the history of the
Surprised
Littleton
if the
Board of Health.
Harwood folks didn't show up. I actually permitted that place in Concord. They were.
Don't say
It's the truth. I'm not gonna hide anything.
What?
Well,
But-
we're on public TV, it's not like you're gonna hide
It's
anything.
not, it's
But
public
that's-
knowledge.
That's funny. There you go.
Give him another 5 minutes.
Okay.
10, I guess. We'll give him-
So besides canoeing, what else did you do in Maine? Pretty much camp and canoe?
Just camping and canoeing, swimming, hiking, that sort of thing. So
Mhm.
it's just me and the kids.
Is that near Katahdin?
Katahdin, yeah.
Is it?
Yep.
Did you go hiking a little bit near Katahdin, or?
They don't allow dogs in that park. So, no,
Oh.
we didn't go up there. We did go up towards there. We went to the west branch of the Penobscot one day, which is right on the outskirts of the park.
Hmm.
But it's a nice hike. I've climbed it before.
I've never been
Several
in that
times.
park. I would love to go. I've
It's,
kind of creeping east over the White Mountains and
It's a
going
pretty
into Maine.
interesting hike. It's pretty challenging, but there's something called a knife edge where you basically have a drop on either side.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Well, it's pretty wide, though.
I'm gonna-
I've done
I'm
it in
gonna-
winter, and basically the thing is you're roped up to the person in front of you. When somebody falls off one side, you're supposed to jump off the other just to balance it out.
Oh, lovely. I definitely won't be doing that.
And hope the rope doesn't
Right.
cross a
Right.
sharp rock.
That's right. Yeah, I heard about that. No, I'll just do the first one. But I would like to go in there and.
But it's a beautiful
hike.
park. It's very, it's not like the White Mountains at all. It's very desolate. It's mostly wilderness. It's not, there's no North Conway in the middle of it.
Yeah, and that's nice.
Roland and I
So-
climbed Mount Washington 3 years ago.
You and Roland?
Yeah,
Good for
went up
you.
Lion's Head.
Good for you. I was camping and hiking off of 113, which is on the main side of the White Mountains. I loved it because it was just no tourism. It was just pretty much the people that were at our camp, our AMC camp, and we'd go hiking up the mountain. We wouldn't see anybody, which was nice.
Well, this is mostly lumber company land on the side, you said, so there weren't a lot of tourists. A lot of moose.
You saw a lot of moose.
Yeah.
Did they look healthy, or did they look tick-ridden and
There's not many
sickly?
ticks up there. They're pretty healthy. It wasn't black fly season, but there aren't many ticks up there. So.
Good. Oh, that's good. Well,
No deer
apparent-
ticks up there.
Apparently, they're being decimated as far as the ticks go up north. The moose have taken a hit, I guess.
There's an occasional dog tick, but there are no deer ticks that far north so far.
That's
And
good.
there are plenty of deer, so I think it's, the winters may be a little harsh for them.
So I took a friend up Sunday and we climbed Mount Willard off of Crawford Notch.
I've
And then
climbed Willard and
came back down.
I ice climbed up Willard a few times. That's nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful view. I love it. I've probably done it 3 times, not much. It's a good, moderate, easy climb.
I had a conversation earlier today about the epidemic of heroin overdose up in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Oh, it's
Mhm,
everywhere.
mhm.
It's
It's
even in-
everywhere,
They've
everywhere.
had, I know, it's
yeah.
Plymouth
prevalent.
County, which isn't exactly an urban place, that's 3
But
deaths a day.
Manchester had 300 in a year
Yeah,
overdoses.
yeah. Channel 5 did a special on it about a month ago. I only had a chance to see one part of it, but I read about it in the public health journals and things. It's really bad.
Around, I think, the Lawrence area.
Mm-hmm.
I was in with the State House, I had some legislation I had to testify in front of the Joint Committee on Public Health, and I sat there for about 3 hours waiting for my bill to come up while people talked about the various pieces of legislation on it. It's pretty devastating. You know.
Yeah, it is. They're hiring people specifically to deal with that issue up in New
I forget
Hampshire.
which police department it was, it might have been Nashua, where they basically essentially decriminalized it, said bring in all your stuff, you know, just come in, we're not gonna prosecute you, come in and give us your works and we'll sign you up for rehab. And
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
good.
imagine.
Yeah, but that's true.
So I'm pretty sure Shelley notified the neighbors of 370 Harwood, but we'll give them another 5 minutes.
They might just be home watching it on TV. I'm surprised that Halloran's not here.
Me too. Well, we'll reschedule it, because I do think it warrants some discussion.
Mm-hmm, it sure does,
So in
especially.
the absence of anybody else, they did send, one of the neighbors did send some information on
Mm-hmm.
a site in Concord, and they had a specific question, what
Yeah.
they thought was a Concord bylaw. And they wanted to know if we had the same bylaw. It's not a bylaw. The situation in Concord, there are 2 types of composting permits you can get in Massachusetts. One is a commercial composting permit you get through DEP, and one is an agricultural composting permit you get from the Department of Agricultural Resources. Halloran's has a commercial composting permit. The agricultural composting has a couple extra levels of protection from local zoning as well as local boards of health because it's an agricultural operation. So when they talked about the 50% having to be sourced locally,
Right.
that actually had to do with either, I'm not sure they were looking at 40A Section 3, which has a similar provision in it for zoning, where you can have an agricultural operation zoned, put in any area regardless of how it's zoned. So even a residential area, if you have an agricultural composting permit, so it has to be associated with a farm, and it meets the criteria, it can go in a residential area. And there's also a provision, there's a memorandum of understanding between DEP and DAR, which basically says it's not enforced by the state, that 50% of, if it's an agricultural compost operation, 50% of the inputs need to come from the farm. They made reference to that in Concord.
From the farm
From the
or
farm.
from within the town?
From
I
the
thought it
farm.
was within the town.
That's what they said, but that's not the case. I think they're confused. In any case, it wasn't a local bylaw, it was either the MOU or the state law they were referencing. So we don't have a similar bylaw. On top of which, Halloran's is a commercial compost operation, so none of that applies.
Right.
So,
So my take, I read through all the articles, was that it was a different situation in Concord. They were concerned, they had noise issues, they did have odor, but they had noise, they had the agricultural mix, they had a number of things that this group was violating in Concord.
they weren't violating it.
Well,
So-
what they were, well, whatever, they
No,
had a
they-
few
they-
complaints.
No, they had several complaints from the neighbors, and having been involved in it, I know what the issues were. Mainly, they had a front-end loader that, when it went into reverse, had an alarm.
Which
And-
is required by law.
Which is required by law, and that
Okay,
was
so they had
upsetting the
that going
neighbors.
on, okay.
So that was the primary thing that was upsetting the neighbors, as well as the trucks going up and down the streets.
Okay.
There were complaints about odors, but they were frankly not,
Not what we're getting.
no, they were similar to what we're getting, whereas it's sporadic, but, in this case, it wasn't, odors weren't the main complaint there. It had to do with
Right.
noise in a residential neighborhood.
Right, and then there was the issue of the zone, I think it's a zoning issue, or there were a couple of issues.
Well, and what
The-
happened was
the
the town did
agriculture
not
issue-
push them out. Basically, they gave up. The composter gave up. The town didn't force them out.
Wasn't it dealt with more as a public nuisance because of all the
Yeah.
complaints than it
No.
was the fact that they were operating where they shouldn't be? I thought it was because of the multitude of complaints that
Well, there was a
it
private lawsuit
eventually was
against them.
deemed a public
Yeah.
nuisance.
Well, the ag stuff, they can't declare a public nuisance, but the question really became was the 50% rule,
Right.
you
that
know,
was it.
does that have to be 50% of everything on the farm? Because you can look at, because 48 Section 3, essentially, there's several ways to qualify, but one of them is 50% has to come from, of your income has to come from the farm. Do you mix the compost operation in with all the other farm products, particularly when he has a third-party composter in there? And I think that was part of the question that came up. What really happened, frankly, was it became such an untenable situation for everybody, they backed up and said, we're not going to do it anymore. So, and
But I
then there
think
was
the
a private
spearhead-
lawsuit because he basically said, we're going to stop, but we need time to get rid of the stuff and to let it
Yeah.
continue to cook. There was a private lawsuit that he didn't remove it on time.
Yeah.
In
But
any
the
situation, it
biggest
really
thing-
wasn't comparable to anything
Yeah.
here.
Right. The biggest thing I think they had was this mix issue. What I read is there was a problem, they had a bylaw in town about the mix, but he
No, there
has a
wasn't-
different, he
There
has a
wasn't a,
different.
it wasn't a bylaw, it was a state law.
About the mix, but it was related to his agricultural permit, and the
Right.
guy here has a commercial permit, so
It's
it's,
not yet.
it's apples and
But
oranges.
what I was trying to clarify, because they asked if we had a similar bylaw, it was not a bylaw about the 50%.
Oh, right, right.
I don't recall, but it was
okay.
either related to the DEP DAR MOU, which basically said 50% had to come from the farm, or it had to do with 48 Section 3, which is basically the exemption for agriculture from zoning. But two things, one, it's not a local bylaw, so we don't have the same thing here. They don't have such a bylaw in Concord. And two, it's a completely different animal because that was an agricultural compost operation.
Right.
This is commercial, so none of the stuff that came into play there, either with the zoning or with the nuisance exemptions, which
Yeah.
ag enjoys as well, apply to a commercial composter.
Yeah.
So,
I think, they were concerned about those issues. So this is what my experience last week, and this is what I think I want to talk about for just a few minutes, is I went out and it was, I can't even think, it was Thursday or something last week, and the smell was pretty strong. And I did fill out the little Excel sheet and gave it back to Shelley, and she said she was gonna put it in the packets, but I don't
if
see
you could
it.
email that back, just so everybody
So-
on the board gets it, that would be helpful.
Okay, I sent it to Shelley, and she was gonna put it in the packets. At any rate, I was out there, and the wind was changing, but it was a constant smell, because when I was on Colonial or on Richards Way, the smell was fairly strong, and I put it as an 8. And I've been out there for a couple years, and I'd say only a few times has it been 8 or 9. It was very strong. But this is my concern, is Jeff is the one who said, hey, it's smelling again. And I went out there and I met him, and I went into his house, and when the wind shifted and blew his way, it was horrible in the house. It was just really strong. And I guess my concern as a board member and as a person who lives in Littleton, if I was living next to that, is, how much is normal for people to live with when they live next to a site like that, when they didn't buy the house with that stuff going on? And whether they do or didn't buy it with the stuff going on, that's kind of another issue. But it was really strong, guys.
So I think,
And oh, hang on. And I think that that piece of, when we think about rights, when we think about someone, well, he's got a business and he has a right to his business, and we don't want to see him fold his business, and and I don't either. But at the same time, these families that are living around this farm,
it's not a farm.
the composting enterprise.
composting operation.
Yeah, the commercial composting. He constantly calls it Halloran Farm, so that's why I call it farm.
But it's not a farm in
Okay, it's
any way,
commercial,
shape, or form.
so it's a commercial composting, and the people living around it, have this stuff, and it really does go into their house, and I smelled it, and I'm like, right now, I do work out of my house, all my Board of Health work, MRC work is out of my house, and how would I feel if I had all the windows open and I couldn't have my windows open half the time, or whatever part of the time they can't have it open? So I am very concerned about that,
So, Ann,
about their rights, about them being able to use their property and not use their property, but also just all this, that. Because I think we've explored a lot Halloran's, needs and his rights.
No, I don't think we have. I think the primary purpose of this was, one, we did want to get a handle on how bad this smell was. And I take your word for it, but we need more perspective because it is a very subjective thing.
Right.
I am a little bit surprised that he was the only neighbor who complained. And I don't doubt that there's an impact on the neighbors, and it's significant sometime.
Yeah.
But remember, the initial thing we were looking for is, could we correlate the odor with
Yeah.
specific activities on the farm to see if we could mitigate the situation?
Mm-hmm.
So its rights are part of it, but I don't think we've really explored his rights. Gino has certainly spoken of it, but I think what we've really focused on is, how can we mitigate this to everybody's benefit?
Right,
And we've
right.
said very clearly, we're not
Okay.
sure we can do that. But our first step is, so before we say, we understand there's an impact. Nobody doubts that. I
Right.
think we've all have the same experience you. We're
Yeah.
concerned about the people's
Yeah.
rights, as well as we're concerned about his right to operate
Yeah.
a business. We've got to find a way to balance them. If we
Okay.
can't do that, at some point, we may have to take action. But if you remember, the whole purpose of this log was, in large part, especially initially, was to see, okay, what's happening when they smell this, and can we change the operation
Yeah.
to mitigate that?
Okay,
So nobody's not worried. I think we all share the concern about the neighbors. Bill's expressed it, I've expressed it, but
Okay,
we do have
yes.
competing needs here, and if we can balance them, that's our first
Yeah.
objective.
Absolutely, and I know you've said that before, and I'm just saying that I feel like, their needs need to be focused on too.
And I don't think we've
and
ignored their
and-
needs in any
and I
way, shape, or
agree.
form. That's why we've done this, and this is why we brought them in and asked them to fill out a log. I am somewhat surprised that we've only had one resident send in the log. Kind of what I was hoping to
Well,
do
this
is
is
get
what he
a
told me.
better situation. Is it one person who's particularly sensitive, or in a particularly bad line of airflow, or
Yeah.
some,
So what he's told me is that a lot of the neighbors, certainly they all showed up that one night,
yeah.
but the talk around the street is that not a lot of them will speak up. And so I told him that they all need to, because this is why we're doing this. And I noticed when I was in his house, in his dining room, the windows open, smelling all this, he had his, I don't want to say a sifter, he had one of the machines going.
What machines?
He,
Like an air
what-
purifier?
No, he has, it's a sifter, it's a belted machine, you could see it.
Talking the one that lays sideways?
The one
and
that goes up,
spins?
the one that's up in the air. He has something that.
Conveyor belt?
He had something going. He had a machine operating during that time, and
What kind of machine? I'm confused.
and I don't know, because I didn't go on site with him. Just something was.
Oh, okay, you meant
something was going on.
Halloran had it on, okay.
Yes, Halloran had his machines going at the time, and I think it was a sifter, conveyor belt, something, and so I think that,
So what we've
that it-
asked Halloran to do is basically keep a log of his activities so that we can line them up with the complaints.
sure,
It will strengthen this, and perhaps we need Shelley to reach out again if we hear from more than one neighbor. It'll only strengthen, because essentially we're doing a small study. And if we don't
Exactly.
and right now, it seems like we're reliant wholly on Jeff, and not that I discount Jeff's experiences whatsoever, but do we know if it's just Jeff, or the other neighbors having the same thing? Are there times of the day when Jeff's at home when it's happening, that we're not hearing from people? That's all gonna help us resolve this situation. So I'm kind of disappointed that we only heard from Jeff.
and I think people, and this is, I just am gonna say this, it doesn't mean this is our intention, but I kind of feel that from the previous hearings we've had over the years, that people have been very defensive towards Halloran. That's just my opinion, right or wrong, it's not your intention, it's just over the past couple of years, I think it's been more defensive towards Halloran, and I don't know if they're not coming in because they don't feel heard, I don't know if they just don't want to spend the time, I don't know, but for 2 years, I got nonstop emails, texts, whatever, mostly texts, phone calls from 8 Colonial Drive, which is John Sy. And now I don't hear from him anymore. And so I think we're setting ourselves up to try to really resolve this, and I agree, but we need,
And we may not be able to resolve it, and at some point, we may have to determine whether this is enough of a nuisance that it warrants shutting the operation down or putting limitations on it.
Yeah,
But
so-
again, we need to, in an effort to try to balance this, I think, and if you go back to the state constitution, it actually even suggests this, we need to do what we set out to do, which is compare the complaints with the activities and see if we can alter those.
yeah,
We will need to hear from more than just Jeff,
yeah,
though.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's not much point. If the folks won't work with us, it's very difficult for us to help them.
yeah.
Because frankly, I'm willing to take this just on one person's word. Not that I discount it, but one person in the
Well-
neighborhood who has this is,
I mean, I've been out for 2 years, and if it was every single day, I think it would be such an easier decision to make. It's just that it's awful when it does come. It's just,
well, and see, the
And-
problem
and-
is that
and
awful is
it's-
subjective, and I don't doubt that that's what you experience, but I'm-
no, let me clarify, okay? Sometimes it is really awful. Other times it's not. It's more
Right.
faint. So, and I've been out there when other people have felt like it was awful, and I said, no, I don't think this is that bad. So
And that's why
that's the problem.
the more
and
people
that's
who
why
weigh in
it
to
is-
qualify
that's
those
why
odors.
That's why it's so hard to solve this.
Right, but one of the ways to solve this, and this is one of the reasons we have, 5 board members, 5 board members, is because we have that, there's consensus. So you go out and you say the smell is very bad, Bill or I go out and it's not so bad, or we go out and say it is, the more people report it, the more we can correlate where, geez, everybody went out there and said it was an 8. The stronger a case we have.
And I think it's going to be hard to do that because
It's,
everyone's working, and realize that's what we're trying to set up to do, but it's going to be hard to do that because pretty much I'm at home, Bill is here in town hall, but you're working in Marlboro, Gino, I don't know where he is, and John's doing,
Gino's retired, but I
doing
mean,
his thing, so.
but part of
I
this
think-
requires more than
I think
just
it will be.
Jeff responding. I mean, we have
Well-
8 neighbors saying the same thing, that's stronger than one neighbor saying the same thing. And then you go out and
Yeah.
say the same thing, and because you were in town,
Yeah.
that works. But several of these,
Yeah.
I was on vacation, or I would have
Yeah.
been there. Bill, I
Yeah.
know you've been out when Ann or I couldn't been.
Yeah.
I've been out
So-
there
so-
4
so-
times,
so
and the
my whole
first
point
time-
Of what I was trying to say, excuse me, point of what I was trying to say earlier was that it's gonna take more than just me going out, because every time I come back and say, oh, it was really bad, it'll be, oh, well, it's subjective and you just went out. And so I guess what I'm saying to you is I'm tired of hearing that.
That's not a
And-
fair
and-
statement,
and-
Ann. I would
and-
say that if it was just
and
Bill
I've-
as well.
And I've just felt that way the past couple of years. And
Now, may I
so-
speak?
Please, Bill.
Please. I've been out there 4 times. I was out there when we all did the site visit. And I didn't smell anything. We walked around the entire back of the property. And if I remember correctly, I don't think there was any offensive odor that anybody picked up on.
Yeah.
I was out there when a person on Colonial Drive called, and I went to their house. And I have to say that when I got out of my truck, if I was there visiting, probably the first thing I would say when I got to the door would be, "What is that odor?" It wasn't so offensive that I didn't want to get out of my truck or anything, but it was definitely an odor, and it smelled a little bit like rotten apples to my nose. So then I left that house, I went down, I drove around Richard Way very slowly with all my windows down, and I didn't smell anything. I then drove back out Colonial Drive, and I drove on to Rich's property, and I still didn't smell anything. The third time I was out there, I responded to a call from Jeff, and I went out to Richard Way, and once again, I drove around the circle very slowly with all my windows down. I didn't smell anything, and I was out there within 15 minutes of his email. And I drove back down Colonial Drive, I went on to Halloran's property, and he just happened to be walking up the driveway. And I said, "We got a complaint, do you mind if I drive to the rear of your property?" And he said, "No, go ahead." There were two loaders working, filling what I believe is called a Drummel. And they were working, and I went down to the rear of the property. I still didn't smell anything. The wind was blowing from Halloran's property off the back of the property towards Richard Way. So I still didn't smell anything back there. When I came back off of Halloran's property, I noticed that the loaders, from driving over the dirt all the time, were kicking up dust from the engines and the tires going through the dry soil. And in the complaint that I was there responding to, Jeff said that there were clouds. He could see clouds of dust or smoke coming off of the piles from his house. And I think that's what he was seeing. I think it was dust, because when they were digging into the piles, I didn't see any dust. I went back down Colonial Drive again, went around Richard's Way again, and I still didn't smell anything. Now, with all that being said, I have to agree with one thing that was said here, and that's the fact that Jeff lives on the back side of Richard Way, the furthest point from Halloran's property. There are 4 houses between his house and Halloran's property. And it just seems bizarre to me that he's getting all that odor, but nobody else is. Now, it's also been said that nobody complains. Nobody makes the effort to send out an email. Maybe they're not home. And I can fully understand where if his windows were open and there was a strong odor coming off of that property, and then he closed his windows, the odor would be trapped in the house. Or even after the wind stopped blowing, it would still be trapped in his house. And I can see where it would be, very uncomfortable, and I wouldn't want to live with it. And I don't think anybody should have to live with it. It's a very, very, very tough situation. The operation was not taking place when those, certainly when the people on Colonial Drive lived there, there was no composting going on there. It was a farm. And I don't know in
That
what
doesn't
order
really-
Richard's Way and his composting operation happened. I don't know if those houses were there and then the composting operation came in or not.
Legally, it doesn't matter, it's basically whether it's.
No, I understand that. I'm just
Yeah.
offering up
I think it was
sympathy
later.
for those people that live there, because
Yeah.
certainly if I lived there, I wouldn't want to have to deal with it. And I don't think anybody should have to deal with it.
So,
It's not an easy fix by any stretch of the imagination, but
so I've been out there,
more often than not, when I've been out there, I went out there, the 4th time I went out was on my own.
Right.
I was going over to see somebody on Goldsmith Street, and I said, I'll go by there. And I didn't smell anything.
I've been there a dozen times since the site visit. I counted. And I have a routine. I drive onto Halloran's property, I get out and I smell it. I drive on Colonial Drive, I get out, and I walk around and I smell it. and I go on Richards Way, and I get out and smell it. A couple of those times were in response to complaints we got before we had the log system. Neither of those times did I smell anything. It was within a couple hours. That doesn't mean it didn't come and go. I'm not doubting those folks. A couple of times I did.
Let me interrupt you for a second. When you said you smelt it, all you meant was you were
I'll get to
checking
that.
for
So
odor.
I've checked for odor.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
so
it
let me
made it
clarify.
sound like
Well, if you let me
every
finish,
time you
so-
went over there, you smelt it.
Let me finish, you'll hear.
Okay.
So of the 12 times I went there, there were only 2 times when I could discern an odor.
Okay.
It was relatively faint. It was the same odor you described, a little bit tobacco-y, a little bit like apple pumice.
Okay.
It was fairly faint. And I take exception. My experience is every bit as subjective as yours. The reality is odor perception is subjective. And the only way we're going to take that subjectivity out of it is to have more people reporting it and go with the consensus. So when you say you're tired of being told this, I'm sorry, but odor is subjective. The best way we can
I
address
understand.
that.
I
The
understand
best
that.
way we can address that. If you understand it, I'm not sure why you take exception to us saying it,
No,
because you said you did.
Yeah. No, it's because I have just felt like the first couple times this whole thing came up, when they came before the board, this is a couple years ago,
Okay.
I felt that it was sort of slanted towards Halloran.
But we're not dealing with that anymore.
But I know that, I'm just stepping back
Then
and
I'm
looking
not sure
at
why
this
you're
whole
bringing it
thing.
up, because what we're dealing with a situation
Because-
now is where we've had the residents in, we've asked them to provide input.
Mm-hmm.
We've been very open with them about what we're gonna do with that input.
Yep.
You know, our challenges and with the subjectivity and trying to get, the only way to get around the subjectivity is the more people we have reporting it, we can develop some consensus.
I agree.
And that requires the residents to report it, and it requires us to go out there. You've been good, I was away for these, I've been out there plenty of times, Bill has, I know, I think Gino's been out there as well. But we do need the residents, I'm gonna ask Shelley to reach out to them again and say, for this to work and for us to come to a resolve from this, they need to work with us and they need to report this. Because if it was an 8, as you said, and I don't doubt it, and as Jeff said, then it would be helpful if other people say it was a 2 or a 5 or an 8 at the same time. If everybody's saying it's an 8, that certainly strengthens the consensus. Because as I view it, there are minor inconveniences with almost every activity we have in town. I have the community farm up the road from me. I have people zipping up and down what is a private road and a dirt road, kicking up dust all day long because of the community farm. I used to live on Harwood at the other end. I had people zooming by at 40 miles an hour. I didn't really like that. I lost a cat, I worry about my kids, that's part of it. Where it becomes a problem is when the frequency, the intensity of that odor becomes that strong. If it's a minor or infrequent inconvenience, we all deal with that because composting, like farming, like roads, is part of life. But when it becomes that frequent and that intense is what we need to get at. And then we as a board, if we decide, well, first I think we need to try to rectify it. But then if we as a board all say, this is just too bad it doesn't belong there, or it does, that's why we have 5 elected members of the board to look at that. But we need that input, we need the experiences, we need the feedback from these folks to come to that decision.
Exactly.
So I'm going to ask
Exactly.
Shelley to reach out to these folks again and ask them, I don't think we're slanted towards Mr. Halloran, I think we're doing all this for the neighbors. He just
Yes.
assumed we weren't there.
Yes,
And this is
I
a
think
fair
this
amount of
is-
effort on all our parts. We've all been there several
Yes,
times.
I agree with that. I'm just backing up, looking at the whole
Okay.
thing,
I think we
saying,
need
and
to
now
look
we're
forward, not
going.
back.
Okay, I know you take offense to what I said. However, I said it because I felt that, I wanted to say that on the record, that I felt like that's where we've come from. And going forward, we do need the residents to chip in so that they can have their right representation. Because that's what you want, and that's what we all need
That's what
for
we
it to
need
happen.
to come to
And
resolve
I think
this.
the other thing, though, that needs to happen is, and I don't know how this is gonna happen with everybody having their jobs and things, is more than one board member to go out when it's apparently really bad, or when something comes in. And I know that's a logistical challenge, but I think that's gonna be needed, because
So-
otherwise it's me going out
And that's not quite fair.
mostly Bill.
First of all, since we've started this thing, what have we had, 2 reports or 3 reports from Jeff in the middle of vacation season? So I wasn't around. So
I understand that.
it's not just you going out, you happen to be the one who was here when they
Okay.
came in.
Okay, just cool down, just calm down. Okay, all I'm saying is.
I'm just being direct, but I don't think your attestations are fair.
Okay, I'm not saying that I'm the only one. I'm saying that, yes, I understand, since we've started doing the reports, Bill's gone out, I have gone out. I'm just saying, what I said earlier, that it needs to be more people going out when the complaints come in. It shouldn't just be one person. We should try to do 2 board members.
I think that's a
Because
given,
I
Ann.
I
That's why we
think
set
that
this
will.
up.
I know that, but look, going ahead, I mean, everyone's working, everyone's doing what they're doing, and I'm just saying that the challenge is gonna be to get more than one board member to go out.
I don't think that's a challenge.
All I'm
I mean,
saying.
it may be a challenge of all the, we get reports from one person in the middle of the day during vacation season, which is what we've had, you know, but, I mean, if it's 9 o'clock at night, I'm gonna go down there. If it's on the way, if I get it at noon, I'm gonna stop by on the way from work.
Mm-hmm.
But when I need to be here, but we've only had 2 reports through this, I believe.
Well, I'm just saying going forward.
Jeff made several in the
Jeff
last
Made several, yeah.
Yeah.
There was
few
a
weeks,
bunch.
but prior to that, I think there were only like 4, and I responded to 2 of them.
No, but we're talking about
Yeah,
the
I am
formal
too.
system we have where all
Oh,
the neighbors go in.
since that's been set
Yeah,
up,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
As
and-
far as the
and that
other
was just
reports,
set
when we
up.
get it through Jim and whatever, I went out to several of those. So it
I went
hasn't
out
been-
to one of them.
But we need to focus on.
I know, and I, just forget the part about it's just me, it's just you. Forget the number, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the logistical issue of, to make this less subjective, because that is the challenge here.
Right. Well, we agree, because.
We need to figure out a way during the day when everyone's busy doing their whatever it is, and I'm busy too doing my job search and all that stuff, to make sure that more than one person goes out. That's all I'm saying. I think that's the.
I don't
the-
think that's
I-
much of a problem. I think
I
Gino is
hopefully-
home, Bill is home,
Then we gotta see to it that that happens.
you're in Littleton. I don't think it's really, I don't think that's an issue. The issue at present is getting the reports in from the neighbors.
All right, I want to make one comment about that. And right now, I am in the middle of the road on this thing, because I've been out there 4 times. Twice I didn't smell anything, and twice I did. But when you say we have to have more people complaining,
For reporting odors if they
okay,
exist.
all right, whatever way you want to state it. They were all here at a meeting, they were all told how we were going to handle this. And like I said, I am in the middle of the road here, but I really am not sure that it's fair to Mr. Halloran for the board to reach out to these people again and reinforce the fact that, you know, if you want something to happen here, you gotta start sending in complaints. I'm not sure that
It's not
that's
so much
a good
complaints as they
idea.
need to report the odors.
Whatever way you wanna word it, Brett. All I'm getting at is they've been given the opportunity to do this, and we keep hearing from one person. And now we're gonna go back and say, hey,
And
you
Bill,
know,
if we didn't have 9 of them sitting in the room that day, I would agree with you.
that's the whole reason why I'm saying it.
But
Everybody was
Given the fact that we
here.
had so
I
many
think they're
people come
relying on
in, I do think we need to reiterate to them, because perhaps they don't understand, that for this to work, and
Well,
for
the
us to
way-
make an accurate assessment of the situation, we need to know when they experience a problem.
Well, the way I
do.
look at
We
it, if
do.
we haven't heard from them, evidently they haven't been experiencing a problem. I mean,
I hope that's the
I
case,
just-
but I'm not sure we can make that assumption. I would like to put this to bed. What I don't want to happen is 6 months from now say, oh, we never bothered because we didn't think the board was interested in hearing from us.
And that's our problem?
It will be, well, we're not trying to solve our problem, Bill, we're trying to solve their problem.
And I understand that, and they're not, either, one or two things is happening here. Either they're smelling something and they're not reporting it, which isn't helping them solve the problem, or 2, they're not smelling anything.
And that could be the situation, but
So-
I would like to make sure that we know what's going on. That was the whole point of this, is to make sure
We
we know what
do,
people's
but they don't
experience.
seem to.
No, I'm not sure what's
I don't-
happening. We've heard from
they-
one person, and I don't know if the other
They
people
could
in
be
this room
on
have the same
vacation
thing.
too. They could be
Yeah.
on vacation too, so let's just go
Since
forward.
July? I mean,
They could be on vacation. Well, it was a couple, was it 1 week last week, and then it was the week of.
I'm just sure
first
I'm
of
not
Ju-
comfortable.
Of August. I mean, I was on
I'm not encouraging
vacation.
them to complain. I'm encouraging them to report their experience.
Certainly sounds like that.
Well,
I don't think so.
We can clarify the
I don't
words, but
think
I don't
so.
think so, Bill.
No.
But I do plan on asking Shelley to reach out and say, hey, we need your input if you want us to work on
Yeah,
this.
yes, and as I said, when I was talking to Jeff, it sort of seemed like the neighbors were leaning on him to be the reporter, and I said, no, you guys need to report. He's like, oh, so-and-so did this research, and so-and-so did that, and so-and-so, I'm like, you guys just need to tell us. It doesn't need to just be be Jeff, and so.
Was Jeff the one who came up with the information on Concord?
No, it was a neighbor.
Right, so
And-
we know
and
there's
the
at least
neighbor's
other
not-
neighbors involved in this.
It was several other neighbors, and so that's my point,
So,
is,
I would rather have them take the time to to report their experiences than researching cases in Concord that don't have any relevance to this.
yeah, or little relevance.
None.
Man, that could.
No, it has no relevance.
There was a little bit of odor in Concord.
It
That's
was
it. A 10% relevance, okay? 10%. Maybe, okay.
So anyhow, I understand what you're saying, Bill. I don't want to encourage people to create a problem, but if they're
Right.
experiencing something, if we're going to take action, our job here is to help these folks if they have a problem, but we do need to encourage them to tell us what that problem is.
I agree, and I think we already did that. I think we've already done our job as far as that's concerned.
Yep. Well, I'm big on due diligence, so I'm willing to go the extra mile to encourage them.
I agree with that. Because I think this needs to get kind of resolved. I just think we need to go through this process and,
Now, with that said, I'm not gonna do it again after that. I mean, we can lead the horse to water, but we can't make him drink, and I don't mind trying to pull these folks and getting them to participate, but I'm not gonna browbeat anybody.
yep.
And I'm not ignoring what you're saying. I heard every word.
I understand your
and
perspective as well, Bill.
I just feel it puts the board in a position where we're picking sides.
But we're
And
not
I-
asking them, I don't think that's true at all. Any more than I think it's true that we've sided with Mr. Halloran. But we need information from both of them if we're gonna help resolve this conflict. Mr. Halloran's been pretty good, and perhaps the neighbors have been on vacation, there's been a good reason. Or maybe it just has been Jeff who's been experiencing the odor, I don't know. But my sense is that there are people who are still having issues who haven't reported, and I want to make sure that's not the case, or if it is, that they know the importance of getting that information into us.
Yes.
Well, I guess the reason I feel the way I feel is because if I was living there and I was being annoyed by an odor, you can bet your sweet life I'd be letting people know about it, especially when I'm given the opportunity.
I would as well, and I think we made a good faith effort to these folks and let them know what we wanted to do and ask for their help, but I don't mind asking again. I think that's just due diligence.
Okay.
Okay. Good. I think that's the right thing to do.
I'm not going to do it a third time, though.
That's fine. It's fine, because we're kind of just getting this whole system
Yeah.
rolling. And I think people are still hiding behind other people to say things, and I just think they need to come
Well,
forth and say what they need to
I'll
say.
draft something up for Shelley to send out to the neighbors that basically explains why we need everybody to report.
Yeah, that's a
you
good
know.
idea, not just one person.
Right. And,
Exactly.
You know, and I've had concerns too about people kind of getting together and sending in, I don't think that will happen, but that's an issue as well. There's confounders in this little study of ours that could come up.
That's right,
But
this is our little
we
study.
need, we can consider that in our deliberations, but I don't see any evidence of this at this point. Our real issue has been getting everybody to report.
Yeah,
So-
I think we're all trying hard with this, and I'm encouraged by that. I think that's good.
Any other business?
Nope, make a motion to end the meeting, adjourn.
All right,
Second?
okay, I'll
You
second
have
it.
to go on. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody.